Ons almal ken die Bos-ystee handelsmerk, maar min van ons ken die storie agter hierdie helderkleurige rooibostee-drankie. Grant Rushmere, medistigter van BOS Brands, sluit nou by my aan. Hello Grant.
Hi.
Grant, you're actually a coffee guy by trade. That's how it all started off. How?
Yeah.
But tell us a story about Bos.
Yeah, it started with the coffee. So, my first brand was a little coffee shop in Cape Town. And, I realized that I didn't want to have some Italian brand. It was the cafe was called Afro Cafe. And I realized in the process of research that coffee originates in Africa. And a lot of people didn't know that. So I really wanted to highlight that in the coffee shop. So it was African coffee, Afro coffee. The tagline was celebrating coffee's roots, and it really was a celebration of contemporary urban African culture, sort of a confident view of the way we see ourselves, and not really a sort of a colonial view of coffee.
Yeah.
And I felt very importantly that we need to add value in Africa. We great at sort of sending our produce away,
yes,
and buying European brands or foreign brands. And I thought it's time that we showed our sort of a confident face of a young Africa.
And how did you go from this coffee brand into tea?
I was 6 months after opening. I had this visitor, a gentleman called Jan Kastner from Austria, who was so happened to be one of the key people in the building of Red Bull. Sure. So he was the guy who came up with the line "Gives you wings," and designed the can. And he said, "Do you want to take this global?" So of course I said, "Oh, let's go." And through him I met Dietrich Mateschitz, the founder of Red Bull, who became my partner. And an adventure started, an amazing learning curve for me as a young entrepreneur from South Africa.
Absolutely.
Learned about building brands, the disciplines that were required. And during that process, I then started Afro Tea, which was rooibos, honeybush, once again celebrating Africa's produce. And in the process I found that rooibos worked amazingly as an iced tea.
Yeah.
To cut a long story short, it was a 2.5-year adventure. We opened a cafe in Salzburg, just down the road from where Mozart was born. So the Afro Cafe sits proudly.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I love about the brand is the fact that you said from the start that this will always be a global brand.
Yes.
How did that change the way in the way that you set up the business as a startup? How did that focus shift?
So moving on from that, I sold that brand to Red Bull, and the birth of the idea of the rooibos iced tea was there.
Yeah.
And I set about looking at creating Bos-ystee. And when I looked into the world of iced tea, I was amazed by the size of the market. At the time, it was bigger than an energy drink. So it was a very attractive market. I knew that South Africa was a small market, relatively. Iced tea isn't a big factor in this market. But I realized that South Africa is a fantastic place to grow a brand. We've got an amazing cross-section of cultures, income groups. And so it's a wonderful incubator for brands. And that's, so I set out from the beginning knowing that ultimately, for us to be really successful, we would have to go overseas. Yes. But this was the perfect place to start and develop.
Let's talk about your brand. You specifically decide, and about the design. Why was it important to go specifically with the line and also with the incredibly colourful range? Was there purpose behind this?
Definitely. I saw the opportunity. The line is another story. It's symbolic. It had a story. And for me, African mythology, storytelling is such an important part of African culture. I wanted to reflect that in the brand. And the lion and the star are significant for quite a lot of reasons. That's a long story. The boldness of the color is also part of something very African, and the naivety of the design. If you look at the color of the black and white, no shadowing, very, very simple, in my mind, sort of a license in Africa to use color.
Yes.
The other thing is that when I looked at the iced tea space, everyone globally was playing this very healthy card, almost like you've been a naughty boy, you better have a healthy drink. Yes. And I thought that they'd lost the point of beverages as entertainment. Yes. I wanted iced tea to be a young kid on a skateboard, to be just as cool as a guy drinking a Coke or a Red Bull.
And that's exactly what I wanted to ask, because it's at the moment it's quite competitive space. If you think about big brands like Lipton, for example, how are you able to say, and this is Bos, and this is truly a unique offering? Because I'm sure there's a lot of small brands out there facing big competitors. How did you make it incredibly unique?
First of all, exclusively using rooibos, organic rooibos. Intrinsically in the product, we used less sugar, we used natural flavors, we made it as healthy as possible, but it still had to taste great. So I think the biggest differentiator for us was attitude. We said healthy can be fun. Why do you have to sacrifice when you go healthy? Why do you have to sacrifice the joys of a brand? So we've marketed ourselves and positioned ourselves in a very different way than previously iced teas had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would your advice be to small entrepreneurs out there that says, I've got this brand, I'd like to take it global. What's kind of the basic principles of taking that brand global?
First of all, know what's happening globally. Know the space. The better you understand the space, the trends, the more likely you are to create an accurate product to cater to the trends that are coming up. The more competitive advantage you can create. And that is a global sense. Don't necessarily, if you already think global, then research globally. The other thing is take your time. Let the brand develop, because brands take time. You can't just force it out there. And it's a dialogue, really. So you get better at it. Do well in your home market helps a lot, because then you understand what works, what doesn't work. It makes it a lot easier to go out there. The other important thing I'd like to say is that it's important that a lot of young entrepreneurs or brands they get flattered by people saying, "Oh, I want to import your product." Research the right partners. Make sure that your brand is going to be supported there, that it's sustainable.
Yes. How do small entrepreneurs get it right to continuously reinvigorate their brand?
I believe that you got to do it enough time before so that you don't change it. I like to, and this is, everybody's got a different philosophy. I like to develop something that is timeless. So I sit with it a long time. I don't rush the process.
Yes.
This took 2.5 years in development. So I had it sitting in front of me every day. If it started to wane, I knew it wasn't right. If it grew on me, that's there. But obviously you got to constantly seek to to innovate.
Yes.
That is, bring new products and new offerings within it, new flavors. So, but the brand look and feel should be very consistent. I think that's important.
Grant, fascinating story. I can't wait to follow your story and to see what other markets you guys are going to penetrate. So looking forward to hearing from you again.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks
so
very
much.
much for having me. Ciao.